Hi, I'm Chris James, and you're watching A Healthy Alternative. Today we have an extra special guest. Khepra Anu
Okay.
has joined us. He is an author, he's a raw foodist, and also a master chef. I know y'all like food, so we're going to be talking about food, but also we're going to be getting into some of the health benefits, hydration, and some other topics. I'm really excited to dive into this, so stay tuned. That's coming up next. We're missing a piece of the puzzle.
You start getting healthy and you just become a better person.
We need to start focusing more on the individual.
Okay, Khepra, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Oh, me too, because one thing I could tell you about my group is they like food, I like food, and one of the, I think, hardest pieces for the transition as you're transitioning to the healthy lifestyle is the food, right? We talk about like food addiction and people not really knowing what to eat. So having a master chef on board, somebody that's been in the game for 20, 30 years. I've got a couple questions, but I guess to start off, I always like to find out about people's background a little bit. So I don't think you were always the guy that you are now. Where did your health journey start? And what was kind of like the reason you kind of started this journey?
Well, as a teenager, I grew up in upstate New York and like outside of New York City, not in New York City, but outside of New York City. I mention that because, at the time, New York City culture was predominant even in my town. So growing up as a teenager, being influenced, obviously, it was like I kind of witnessed the birth or at least the evolution of early hip hop and hip hop culture. And part of what came with that was consciousness, whether it be social consciousness, history, political, and so that really kind of led me down a path of just finding out information that I wasn't learning, one from like my parents and my community, and also definitely not in school. So I started reading books that were, I guess, alternative, and that led me down a path of health. So that really, I would read books on history, on politics, on culture, on race, on everything. But it was the health books that I really latched onto. And immediately, I think at that point, so I'm like maybe 16, 17 years old, and I say, okay, I'm not eating no more pork. I'm not eating any more red meat. So, we all go through that phase. People call it by different names. One lady just told me she's been pescatarian, whatever that is. And so, yeah, I naturally made those progressions early on in life as I was becoming a young man. And then once I got to college, it just went to another level where, again, access. And I mean, you're talking, this is like, I graduated high school in 1990. So you're talking early 90s where, when I first went to college, majoring in engineering. And I don't even really remember being on a computer at all. At least my first year at college. So it just lets you know how times have changed, especially in terms of how we get access to information. So it was traditional way through books, through the human exchange. So what really planted the seed, the first big seed was, not only just reading, I was reading books. Queen Afua had a book that was a big influence, Heal Thyself, Dr. Africa's book, African Holistic Health. those are probably my two most greatest books early on in the early 90s. But then it wasn't until, I believe it was 1991, when I heard Dick Gregory speak for the first time. And he opened up the Bible in Genesis 1:29 and said, man should eat basically fruits and herbs.
Right.
And that had such a, that my life was forever changed at that very moment. So much so I just started eating fruits for like the whole week. And I was essentially on a fruit fast.
Right.
Because I was losing weight and I didn't really have much weight to lose anyway, but I lost even more weight. And, you know, my senses and my energy was just so high. So that just started, you know, again, just me just not really knowing what I was doing, but just doing it just because I was inspired to do it. And inspired not because I'm sick or doctors giving me 3 months to live or any reason like that. Because a lot of people need that sort of motivation. I just wanted to, my desire and what still drives me today is to achieve the highest state of health possible. I feel like, you know, our physical body is a divine gift, and it is really our responsibility to honor it. And we honor it by treating it with love and respect. So that's what's been my drive and my motivation all of these years. I feel like my life is just beginning in a lot of ways. So that's the backstory.
Nice. I like it. It's interesting because I agree with the way that you went about learning. So I was motivated by sickness, not what anyone would consider terminal, or most people would just kind of brush it off like that's not really sickness. I just started understanding that my body was breaking down, and it was breaking down way too rapidly. And so it enticed me to want to learn more to see if I could kind of prevent the possibility of cancer or diabetes or some of these other diseases. And it's interesting that you say that Dick Gregory opened up the Bible, and that was really like one of the big aha moments for you, because I was actually studying the Bible as a part of my like growth at the time. And I remember trying to figure out why, when in Genesis it says, you know, we eat pretty much plants, and then later on it talks about, you know, oh, you're allowed to eat meat now, but you just don't eat the blood of animals, and then making the correlation between the lifespan of man at that time. It seemed like every time we were allowed to eat more or something different, our lifespan would decrease. So I kind of made that a similar correlation. And I was just like, well, it must be optimal to eat plants.
Right. Yeah.
So out of curiosity, how old are you?
Just turned 48.
Wow. I was doing some math in my head. I'm like, okay, he's almost 50. Wow. Yeah. I mean, here's my thing. I've always said that, like, I want to lock it in right now. Like, I started my wellness journey about 5 years ago. I'm like, I want to lock in my looks, my appearance, just by, you know, eating well, hydrating. And I want to continue to look youthful into my 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. And
absolutely.
So being able to see someone who is quite a few years ahead of me already doing it, you know, it definitely is encouraging, because honestly, you don't look much different from, I think I saw a video of you. It had to be like back in the 2000s, early 2000s, because you had braids or locks.
Yeah. So basically what I say to that is, you know, one of the, and again, this is part of the motivation, is we should embrace aging. We should embrace every year around the sun it should be a greater opportunity, because we, you know, it's another year that we've learned more about life. And the worst part, you know, because I lost my mom, and I've seen elders pass, and different people die, and there's almost always a frustration. And the last thing I want, again, one of my life goals is really to make my own decision when I choose to leave.
Yep.
It's just like when we go to sleep at night, we really choose to go to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that death is the final rest. And to really, again, get the most out of this gift. This is the divine gift. Our soul is housed in this physical body. That's a divine gift. And it is really up to us to treat it as such. So with the aging, you know, we can certainly, right, it's almost like, it's not putting it on pause, but it's just getting better with time. Mm-hmm. And as we get older, we get wiser, we learn more. But if we treat our bodies right, we're able to stick around and benefit from the wisdom that we gain from being here. Mm. So it's a win-win situation. So I just wanted to say that.
No, I agree 100%. You know, like I think of it as aging fine wine or something. It's, I mean, even, and I heard this, that your bones over time become stronger, which to me makes sense. You think about like a tree or something, a 200-year-old tree versus a sapling or whatever. I mean, mm-hmm. And so I just feel like we look at aging wrong. And I think that perception of it also plays into the deterioration of our temple and our body, and learning and understanding how it truly functions. And then, like you mentioned, man, huge, because I don't hear many people say this, being able to choose when you pass on to that next place. Like, I've always believed that that's how it's supposed to be, because everything else is like organ failure or some disease.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Awesome. Okay. Well, let's start kind of maybe getting into the food. I'm mm-hmm. curious about how did you become a master chef? Like, why did you, like, how did that happen?
Wow. Yeah, I shake my head because, you know, it was just one of those, I mean, I know at this point it was just divinely chosen for me. And you know, not to get mystical or super spiritual, but you know, when moments in your life just align so perfectly. And you know, again, I think I mentioned that, you know, I went to school to become well, I don't know if I went to school to become an engineer, but that was my major in college.
Right.
And, you know, wasn't sure, because even when I was in college, I wasn't sure. I said, I know the 9-to-5 thing is not for me, but this is something that I'm also good at. You know, I like working out and, you know, analytical problems. And, you know, and really choosing engineering was like, okay, this will be a good career path so I can make some money.
Right.
But at the same time, I wasn't sure. I knew there was something that had to, I mean, again, it was just really an unknown. And so once I committed to the lifestyle, it became like a burning passion for me to learn how to make the best food. Mm. And that's the only thing I can say. I didn't go to chef school. I do have I mean, you know, once on the path, you know, I met my eventual teacher, who's and I knew it was really cemented at that point because, you know, he being the godfather, Dr. Reese Latham, you know, who started Raw Foods back in the early 70s or the late 70s, actually. And really being the father of modern raw gourmet foods. So the fact that I've gotten the opportunity to, you know, work under him at least, or work with him for at least the last 15 or so years, and you know, just really take raw food and say, okay, what is the best food? Number one, we know that it's food that it shouldn't be, that should be cooked by the sun.
Okay.
Food that is really in alignment with nature and with the natural process of the cycles. So the cycles being the moon cycle, the sun cycle, the rain, the wind, the earth, and how all of that comes together with, as far as how it grows a fruit or a vegetable or a seed or a sprout or a nut or whatever it may be.
Mm.
And then, as a chef, taking those raw materials and enhancing them, because, someone could obviously make the argument and say, well, if nature already produced it, like this tomato or this cucumber or this apple, you shouldn't take it and, either juice it or manipulate it or add it to other ingredients.
Mm-hmm.
And what I say to that is, well, we all enjoy music. And, if we take the sounds and we hear them independently, like a drum or a string or a horn or a voice, we can appreciate it. But when we bring those together in a rhythmic way, in a way that's harmonious, we get enhancement of all of those things together. And so as a raw food chef, I really feel like that is what a raw food chef, or really any chef, but definitely a raw food chef, because
Right.
you're respecting Mother Nature, and because she is the ultimate chef who produced this apple, who produced this banana, or whatever the fruit or vegetable may be, in a divine, perfect way. And now you're taking it and bringing a harmony with different, like an herb, maybe something that is a little more hot, like maybe an onion or a hot pepper. You're bringing like maybe some natural salt or some spices, and bringing these things together in a harmonious way, that now everything gets enhanced by bringing it together. So that's been the path, and that's been the journey in terms of, I guess, becoming a quote unquote master chef.
Hey, I love it. And I love the way you broke down, because a lot of people feel like if you process it, and there's the purists out there. If you process it at all, it's not as good. But the way that you compared it to the musical, the different instruments, and it's we are creative creatures by nature.
Exactly. We're artists.
Right.
Artists.
So
Yeah.
we're going to take that artistry, we're going to apply it to everything we do, whether it's technology, whether it's food, or whatever the case may be. And I'm okay with that. And I understand that, because everything's not necessarily done for us, but we have all these amazing tools that we could use to create an infinite amount of, different results. And I think that's the spice of life, right? The creativity that we each have. And there's something special that you're here to do, only you could do. And being able to fulfill that is like the most amazing thing. So I'm all for it. Plus, let's be honest, so I feel like, and maybe it's just our world now, but I feel like it gets boring just to eat apples all day, or you know what I'm saying? Like, what's wrong with me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Shoot, I love ice cream, So I guess I'm wondering, during your journey and with the teaching that you've had, so there's a way to modify food to enhance it. Would you also consider that there's a way to modify food to become more low vibrating and even disease, start disease in the body?
Well, that's the whole thing. You know, a lot of disease, if not most or all of disease, comes from really the over processing of food, and really not even food, because people are not really eating real food.
Mm.
You know, anything that has to be preserved, and you know, the more, it's like the more that man gets involved with chemicals and processes and manufacturing and engineering, and it's like the further we move away from food, it's not even real food. So it's like the question is, what is it?
Right.
We can say that is, well, it could be considered really a drug. And so, you know, these things, like any drug, become addictive, and that addiction will be just like any other addiction, where it's like the person, even if they wanted to try to do it, they're not in control. And so what it does is it leads us down basically a slow or sometimes fast path to destruction, a slow death, and painful usually.
Very painful, considering the variety of different diseases we can develop from consuming this stuff. What would you say to maybe make it very clear and easy for people to understand, what is food? What would be considered food? How do you break that down?
Well, if we look at as far as the plant-based world, at least, you know, raw food, plant-based is what I eat and what I've been doing for the last 2 decades. Definitely fruits, vegetables, herbs. There are also seeds, flowers, and I mean, that's really pretty much it. I mean, I'm sure there's maybe 1 or 2 things that I may be missing, but that should be 80 to 90% or 100% of what we really should be consuming as fruitarians. I believe we are really fruitarian. And, you know, with the fruitarian diet, we look at the fruitarians in the animal world, and the fruitarians are very similar to us. Chimpanzees, 99% similar, where they eat primarily fruits. They'll eat leaves. They'll also eat like insects, and they'll eat again, green leaves, fruits, nuts, and I mean, that's pretty much it. So when we get away from that, now we can choose to eat other things, like, for example, animals. And there are some healthy examples of people eating animal products and consuming animal products, but large in part, while those can be conscious choices that don't end up in slow death and destruction, I still feel that it is not the ideal diet for us human beings. So that's what I pretty much define as food, even though it can encompass really, in terms of the omnivore consciousness. I mean, it pretty much is. I mean, there's really no limit to what you can label as a food. But in terms of what I feel, and from my experience and my research, I feel that the ideal diet is the one of largely fruitarian diet, complemented with, you know, vegetables and other things that will round out basically the divine substance in and of itself, which is fruit. I feel like fruit is the cosmic food for human beings. The highest spiritual food. It's the highest moisture food. So it's pretty much the ultimate food, the primary food for human beings.
I have two questions. Briefly, the first one is about peanuts, because you named nuts. I'm curious, what are your feelings about peanuts? Is it something we can eat? I've heard many things. They grow on the ground. We shouldn't eat them. They're not real nuts. What have you found to be the case about nuts, peanuts?
As far as peanuts, I know there's on the market you can find what they call jungle peanuts, which don't have the level of toxins that ordinary peanuts tend to have. I don't know the term that they give that, but I've eaten jungle peanuts. They do taste different than regular peanuts, and they do have a color that you don't find you find that is void with regular peanuts. So and you usually find that with most foods. Like if you find that, like let's take like any particular like fruit or vegetable that has I'm trying to think of a good example. Let's say an orange. Okay, now when I was growing up, all the oranges you bought, I mean, you cut it open and the juice, and I mean, you had like probably at least 30, 40 seeds in that orange. And the juice and the flavor was so rich, and even the color, the color of the juice was a deep orange. Well, now it's like a derivative. So I don't know enough about peanuts. Well, what they've done to either hybridize, they're probably hybrids of the jungle peanuts.
Okay.
But typically when food becomes over hybridized, it loses its color. And peanuts tend to be like, if you buy like regular commercial peanuts, they tend to be almost like white.
Right.
Where the jungle peanut is like a purple. So you know, when you're looking at those colors, you're looking at minerals. You're looking at a vibration that is going to really enhance and give you nutrition, versus like the body have to sort of make up for the missing minerals from man stepping in and hybridizing the nuts or the fruits or the vegetables. So that's what I would say about peanuts.
That makes a lot of sense.
You know, get the jungle peanuts. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't even know they existed. So now I'm glad I got that option. I'm gonna check them out, look for them. And I think you made a really good point about, you know, the lack of color in a food.
Absolutely.
It's like a rule of thumb, right? If it doesn't have color, if it's lacking in color, then you know it's not going to be of the highest nutritional value.
Absolutely. And really, and it goes to, you know, especially for the vegan vegetarians that eat a lot of cooked food, a lot of their food tends to be white or beige or light brown or somewhere in that color spectrum. They're not purple, they're not blue, orange, red, yellow, basically all of the other colors of the rainbow.
Right.
We should be eating all of these colors. These are different. These are different. It's what I call light. You know, these are different. You know, this is what creates the light body. Or when I say light, I mean the colorful body.
Right.
You know, when we're eating all of these colors, and of course green.
Right.
You know, so we need to eat a variety of different colors. If we're eating largely cooked foods, it's usually just one color. So we want to find, when we're in the marketplace, farmer's market ideally, you know, you want to look for these foods, the tomatoes, the greens, the fruits that have the dark, rich colors, and you can't go wrong.
That's very, very interesting, because as I think about the sun, right? And the sun, it has all of the different spectrums of light in it. So sunlight is the rainbow of all these different colors and frequencies. And so all we're really doing is looking to nature and saying, okay, well, if the sun is the primary source of energy, then we should be mimicking that. And in our own, lifestyle eating habits, we should be eating those same colors.
Right. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So everybody just eat the rainbow. That's pretty simple.
Mhm.
You mentioned moisture content when you were talking about, real foods and especially the fruits and vegetables being real foods, having high moisture. I use the phrasing high water content. Um, what is the importance of your food having high water or high moisture content?
No, great question. With water or moisture, we're really eating food that is efficient.
Mm,
If we're eating foods, again, that doesn't have any moisture, any water, that becomes dehydrating in and of itself.
mm,
Because now the body faces this dilemma, because we really need to look at the body really as a juicer
mm,
or a juice extractor. So when we're putting in any food, ideally the body is trying to extract the juice and then move the fiber out. But if we're putting in food that doesn't have any juice, water, moisture, whatever you want to call it, then again there's going to be a real dilemma. And what it's going to do is absorb moisture or overtax the organs
mm.
in order to process it and digest it. So, given the fact that we should be at least 70% moisture, our bodies, or 70% water, we need to be eating foods that are really in that ratio, which again leads back to most of the foods that have that type of moisture ratio is fruits.
Right. Absolutely. Hey, man, I just wanted to hear someone else say it because, so you know how it is. Sometimes it's like you're used to an individual and maybe it's your dad or your brother and they're saying something, maybe it's good information, but they say it all the time. It's great to have someone from the outside come in and say that because I feel like it's important. We need to drive this fact home that you should be eating your water, and the benefit of eating water, it's less taxing on the body and the organs. So as we kind of move into that area, how important is the digestive system, and how, like the foods that you eat, how does it affect your digestive system overall?
Well, again, it goes back to what I just said about, the body being a juicer. Now, there's different aspects of the digestive process in terms of the foods that we eat. So if we're eating, again, foods that have moisture, the body, because the thing is like when we look at, you mentioned digestion or the digestive health, digestion is health.
Mm,
We if our body is not able to digest effectively and efficiently, that is the beginning of bad health.
mm,
So when we're looking at health in general, we have to look at the strength of someone's digestion. So if we're eating, again, not food, but foodstuffs, that's putting a overtaxation on the digestive process. Now, one of the thoughts that I had when you were asking that question was interesting, and this is what I say often, is there's like two exceptions. Children and women who are carrying a child in the womb.
okay.
Those are like the two exceptions. But for but for everyone else who, especially, we're grown, we're fully matured, it becomes about maintenance. We don't need so much protein. It's like protein is the most overrated term that I've ever heard.
Yeah.
We're not going to double in size. We're
Right.
not going to, all of this, it's like all of this nutrition that we need, all protein and this and that, is so overrated. We just live in a consumer world, and the main thing we consume obviously is food. Not even food, but foodstuffs or drugs,
Right.
what do you want to call it. And obviously it breaks down the digestive process, or breaks down the organs that are trying to digest what we put into it.
Right.
So looking at whether it's the colon, the liver, the kidneys, all of these things will get stressed. And for maybe this person, it may show up as the kidneys. This person, the colon, like you see these ulcerative colitis, you see kidney disease, you see people getting their gallbladders removed. Again, these are all the same thing happening, which again, people are just overusing. People are addicted to the foods that they're eating. They don't know how to, they don't want to change.
Right.
Because food, this thing with food is so deep. Food is your life, because you are what you eat. We know that.
Right.
But I flip it and say you eat what you are, because literally what you've been eating is what you literally are down to your cellular molecule,
right.
Which means whatever you've been eating is even influencing or really controlling your mind, your thinking. You can't even, I'm sure we'll talk about fasting. You can't even, like, if you go into a fast, you can't even trust your own mind to say, because your mind is going to be like, you need to break this fast. And your body is like going through that healing process. But, talking about digestion in general, it really comes down to just being addicted. And then each organ has its own brain.
Okay.
So just think about now, people have been eating just foodstuffs that's not ideal, that's not optimal, that's not efficient. It controls not only their mind, but their liver, their gallbladder, their kidneys. All of these things have been compromised. And they all basically can't be trusted, because they're going to emotionally and spiritually and physically influence the person to continue to eat what they've been eating. So that's what I would say. I mean, it's a huge job to really change. It's revolutionary to change one's diet. And it's probably the toughest thing to do, way tougher than changing someone's religion. Because again, like I said, you physically become what you've been eating. But then again, food is also very social. It's culture, it's tradition, it's everything.
Right.
I mean, how do we do anything in society and it be food not be involved?
Right.
So food, when you're talking about changing your diet, you got to change everything.
Right.
You got to change your tradition, your religion, your relationships, the whole thing.
Yeah.
So it goes really, really deep, and you really start peeling the onion, going, it's again, revolutionary.
Man, that's a very, very eye-opening way to explain that. Like, I agree 100%. I don't know that I've ever thought about changing the way you eat as such a big thing, but you're absolutely right. And that's the reason why it's so challenging. I think for me personally, because I was on this journey of challenging fundamental beliefs and traditions, it made sense that I was going to be changing my food and, even spiritual beliefs. but I never really considered it that way. So I appreciate that. One thing before we get into fasting, because I definitely want to get into it, salt, right? I'm really on the fence about salt personally. Now, through my research, I've learned the differences in salt, but I love the way it enhances, the food and the flavors. I want to get your opinion about salt as a whole. Is it good for us? Is it bad for us? Can we mix things together to enhance food similar to the way salt does? Is that necessary? Break it down for me.
Yeah. Okay. I may be. I mean, as far as salt, this may be a little bit biased. At least in the way of salt, because I love salt. I'm gonna just make it plain. But yes, salt is something to question, because yes, salt, as we know, I mean, we can really, I mean, because the thing is like, doing research, you have to be careful, because the human mind can make an argument. The human mind, the brilliant, it's like it's a blessing and a curse. The human mind, because we can logically argue any point and make a strong argument. That's the power of the human mind.
Right.
Like you can have 10 people and have 10 different fundamental beliefs, let's say, about food, and they all be correct, or they all at least all sound correct.
Right.
So in terms of salt, I think it's one of those things that we have to follow our own personal intuition. We're not taught in our modern society to trust that. And for me and my intuition, you see how I set that up?
Right.
With my intuition, there is a place for salt. And again, you can look for the advocates of salt. You can look for, obviously, the cons, or the people who don't advocate salt. And again, they both have solid information, solid arguments for either or. But I feel like we definitely need some salt. Now, in terms of the types of salt, see, that becomes the more deeper question, because obviously all salt is not created equal. So I'm sure we all know about you may be familiar with, I know we're all familiar with the pink salt, the Himalayan salt. You have the gray salt. But there's a salt that is not so common, which is called black salt.
Black salt.
Which you find usually in Indian markets. And black salt is unlike any other salt that I've used as a chef. It's really more where most salt is actually like a rock, like a real rock.
Right.
Even being, when I go to Jamaica and I do my retreats, like the salt that we use, they actually it's like actually a rock, and we'll actually make our own salt. They'll rub it against something, and it'll shed the thing, and they'll just break it down further until it's like something we can put on our food.
Right.
But the black salt is literally a powder, and it has it actually aids in digestion, and it's used in some Ayurvedic practitioners will use black salt. So, and it has a strong sulfur taste and smell. So, and we know sulfur is beneficial for the body. So there is a place for salt. One thing I always say to people who may be dealing with hypertension is avoiding salt is not going to cure you of your hypertension.
Gotcha.
It's really, usually with people who are dealing with hypertension, it's a potassium rather than a sodium. Having a problem processing sodium is a problem that they don't have enough potassium, which again is largely from plant-based foods, like real plants, like not just like, like this whole term plant-based, we got to be careful, like real, like produce, I say that
whole
when you
foods.
right, like real whole foods,
Okay.
whole fresh foods. That's the word, fresh. Whole fresh foods. If we're eating whole fresh foods, we're gonna get our potassium met. And if we're eating largely fresh foods, we can get away with a little salt enhancements. Everything is always about balance. It's always about balance. So if we're eating largely plant foods, we're fasting regularly as a lifestyle practice. When we are eating foods, yes, salt can be very stimulative, especially in the taste. But as long as we're not exhausting our digestion, exhausting our life force, we can do a little salt here and there.
Yeah. And I've even learned that we'll kind of segue into fasting. One of the benefits that I have found with fasting is your taste buds, your changes. It's you become more sensitive to the different flavors that the food that nature has to offer, and so you require less salt. That was my personal experience. Also with just sugar, we obviously with the processed refined sugar, and that stuff is crack, pretty much, but.
Right.
Even with fruit sugar and stuff like that, I find that it's so much sweeter after a fast when my taste buds are kind of refreshed. So
absolutely.
Fasting, I think that holistically speaking, fasting goes along with everything that you're saying. But I'm just curious, when did you start fasting and why? Was it just part of this journey for you? Like, how did that come about?
Yeah, I gotta, my fasting story is probably unlike most people. When I started like my raw food diet, it actually started with a fast, and my whole first year of, on like that first 12 months, doing, saying, okay, I'm only going to eat raw food. And I started with a fast, and I was fasting like, I want to say at least it almost felt like every other week. I was really on a mission. It was a lot of things going on in my life personally. So that was really giving me the motivation to not eat. And initially, what I was doing, I was doing different forms of water. I would go between like spring water and distilled water. And what happened, or what would happen, at least initially, was, let's say I fasted for 7 days. I went through that whole process, and when I begin to eat food, I would overeat. And it was almost like when I was fasting on those waters, it was almost like I was trying to make up for the lost days.
Gotcha.
So after a few times of doing that, I said, okay, something is not right. It's almost like I'm bringing myself to one extreme, to when I go back to food, I'm going right back to another extreme. So I said, well, I'm eating raw, so I don't need to fast. Right. So it wasn't until, I met my eventual teacher, Dr. Latham, and we were doing a retreat, and we fasted on coconut water. And again, it was a paradigm shifting moment, because not only was I not hungry, it felt very complete. And when breaking the fast, I didn't feel the need actually to even eat. It was so mind blowing and so transformative that I decided to really use coconut water as my only drink of water. From that moment on, as I did more research, and I talk about this in my book, all of the, I guess, quote unquote experts at the time, because really no one was talking about coconut water. But even the few people that were familiar with it, that had written books and things, had always suggested to never use coconut water as your only drink of water. But it felt so natural. It felt so right. I said, well, I'll be my own guinea pig. Again, me following my own intuition, my own, what felt right to me. And, of course, also complement that with fresh juices. Now, I have drinking water since that time, but that was probably, it's been, 15, 16 years since that time.
Okay.
But it's always been like fresh, like actually like not out of a bottle.
Right.
It's actually like water that maybe was, I was in an environment where I said, okay, I could drink this water.
Right.
Actually, earlier this summer, I was in Virginia. We were, I believe it's called Scott's Run, and there's like this waterfall. I drank that water. Okay. That water was running. It felt right. I drank it.
Right.
But I'm not, as far as bottled water, definitely tap water or filtered water or reverse osmosis, you name it, alkaline. It's like I got coconut water. I'm good.
Gotcha.
So I don't know. I forgot what your original question was, but segued into.
You pretty much answered.
I was telling my fasting story.
Yeah.
Story. Yeah. So then once I adopted coconut water, I began to do a series of coconut water fasting. And again, complement that with the juice. And what I found with coconut water is that, unlike plain water, now you're going to benefit from any type of fast. But with the coconut water, what it's going to do is really help to transform what you want to eat when you come off the fast.
Okay.
Because I feel like if you just fasting with plain water or any kind of water, again, is very destimulating, which is good. But at the same time, when you reintroduce foods, you really will likely fall back. And if you're trying to, if you're trying to improve your diet, I feel that coconut water is going to allow for one to improve their diet if they want to go to a diet more towards fresh fruits and vegetables. Okay. So that's been been my fasting story, because, after that first year, I didn't fast for a whole nother 2 years until I experienced coconut water. And then since then, I realized I've come up with a whole program of cyclical fasting. Whether you do it during a day, is sometimes what people call intermittent fasting. You do it on a weekly cycle, a monthly or a moon cycle, or a seasonal cycle, or fasting with the sun. So all of these have different benefits in terms of what your goals may be, definitely in terms of maintenance, of just lifestyle, and then marrying that with the food and how one should eat. It's a whole philosophy. It's a whole system that is actually continuing to evolve. Right. As I continue, my experience and using myself, but, also providing, fresh juices and doing, counseling people, on fasting and Again, the program is ever evolving, but it's pretty developed at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so that's my fasting story, let's see. So as far as how I fast now today, I always fast at least 1 day a week. So what does that mean? At least 48 hours. So 48 hours, they say, well, that's 2 days. But no, it's actually 1 day, because if I have my last meal on Saturday at 6 p.m., I won't eat all day Sunday. And then on Monday at 6 o'clock is when I break that fast. So it's a 48-hour fast. And it's usually just, coconut water, maybe some fresh juice. And I'll do that every week. And that's 52 days out of a year.
Mm-hmm.
And then I do that. And that's basically my weekly maintenance. Now I may do another day or two during the week. I just kind of listen to my body. And then during, let's say, I like to do at least 3 to 4 days during the seasonal change. So right now we're in the midst, we're right in the middle of the autumn equinox. So I call these pivot points where, like, as the sun is traveling, if we think about it as like being in a square, so right now at the autumn equinox, it's like this, it's like at least energetically, we're turning a corner.
Right.
So if you're in a car and you have to make a turn, you have to either come to a stop or you have to slow down to make that turn.
Gotcha.
So the autumn equinox is having that effect on our digestion. So we're not able to digest in the same way as if the energy is going in a straight line.
Gotcha.
So I find that people come down with more illnesses in those months: September, December, March, and June. People tend to come down, at least that I found. I haven't done no real in-depth, real detailed study, but just from my own observations, I find that people tend to come down with more illnesses and things, even accidents and things. I actually had an accident 2 weeks ago that hurt my foot, and it's like, look, it's that time in the cycle. I got to slow down. I got to reflect. I got to eat less. And so when you become, again, more in tune, these things are just not happenstance. Right. So we're in the midst of the autumn equinox. So I like to do at least 3-4 days. And then once a year, I like to do a longer fast. So that time is in December. So usually by the first week in December, I will start to lose my appetite naturally. Food will not taste good, or it almost feels like I got to force food down my throat. Like it's like a chore to eat. And then I know, okay, it's time to begin my long fast. And my long fast can go anywhere from 10 days to no longer than 21 days. But again, it's right in line with the winter solstice, which is in the northern hemisphere, is the lowest part. It's like equivalent of 12 midnight during a 24-hour cycle. So at 12 midnight, we should be asleep. We should be at total rest. And so, but in the yearly cycle, during the winter solstice, our bodies energetically are at its weakest point. So it's really not the time to be celebrating and overindulging in food. We're really undoing ourselves in terms of if we look at it in terms of the yearly cycle.
Gotcha.
So that is a period where I do at least about 2 weeks of just fresh juice, coconut water mostly, and a lot of reflection. I'm thinking about the previous year, so it gets a little spiritual. It gets somewhat emotional a little bit, and it's a reset.
Right.
It's a prolonged rest. So now going into the new year, come January, as the days begin to grow longer, your energy now begins to increase, and now you feel that vitality because you've rested your precious digestive organs. Again, efficiency.
Right.
That's the word. So we really start to use fasting as a tool in terms of looking at the cycles and becoming in line with that. So that's what I teach, and that's what I promote, and it's worked very well for me.
Yeah, I love the fact that you are your own guinea pig. That's exactly how I see it. I like reading, I like learning from other people, but I feel like life and experience is the best teacher, and you learn so much more from it than reading it off the pages of a book. When you're experiencing it yourself, you can, and then of course, then you can write about it. You can kind of teach about it. And I found that this experience for me has been transformative. I never could have got this from a book. Like the experience that I have, it's doing it, living it, taking chances, allowing, what resonates you to kind of prosper. Hey, if it resonates with you, go with it. Trust yourself, learn to trust yourself. And then you mentioned, you can't even trust your organs sometimes. Getting your body to a place where you can trust yourself and build that relationship. I just feel like you're right in alignment. Before we kind of started talking, I said, I feel like we're in alignment, and that's 100% true. Like you really think the way I think about it. I really like this idea of rest towards the end of the year. My brother was telling me that the sun aids in digestion. So it would make sense then, as the sun is, maybe not as present, the days are shorter, etc. That all makes sense to me as I'm like putting these pieces to the puzzle together. Yeah. The thing that you said that was really, really interesting was about the coconut water, because I heard that maybe it's like World War II or something like that. They would use coconuts as IVs. So the coconut water could, mix with the blood, and for some reason that was okay. Like that worked out. So I never verified if that was true or not. I've said it a few times. Okay. And so what you're saying makes a lot of sense, almost to the point where I'm like, okay, I think I need to try a coconut water fast, just to see what that experience is like. Especially,
absolutely.
Yeah, because when, I help a lot of people with fasting, but obviously they call it the yo-yoing or yo-yo dieting or whatever, coming off the fast, as you explained, and being very, very hungry. I never really had that problem. And, there's been a few people who haven't really, but a lot of people deal with that. So,
Yes.
I'm interested in trying that, especially knowing how the coconut water seems to just do really well in our system.
Yes, absolutely. The coconut water, one of the things that I love about the coconut water is I say it's the only thing that can consider to be both a whole food and a water simultaneously. If I juice an apple or a pineapple or a cucumber, I processed it. It's not a whole food. Yes, I could gain benefit from drinking it, but coconut water is whole as a water. And one of the things about the coconut water, because people ask me all the time, I talk about this in my book where, because when I got into fasting, you hear about the master cleanse,
right?
Which is this lemonade that you make, and then you have to take this tea, in order to stimulate the bowels. I'm like, what is masterful about that? You know, so with the coconut water, as it being a whole food, it will produce bowel movements. It will stimulate peristalsis in the colon. It will clean your colon.
Okay.
Like as a water. There's no other water that's doing that.
Right.
You know, so you know, and then given the fact you mentioned the IV, they find it almost identical to our blood plasma. You know, and one of the things that I would do, because you look at blood and it's blood plasma and hemoglobin.
Mm-hmm.
So hemoglobin is almost identical to chlorophyll, which you get from green plants. So one of the nice things to do with coconut water is to blend it with like your green plants. Okay. And you can strain it, and now you got almost something identical to human blood.
Wow.
And you can drink it, and it's like now you're getting the I mean, I like to call it the transfusion, because it's like you're drinking almost something identical to our blood. Because our blood is actually, you know, I look at my vein, it's like a green, bluish kind of thing. So our blood, you know, they say it's not red until it hits the air. So yeah, if you're drinking like your green coconut water smoothie or juice, you know, you're drinking something that is like, but really, I mean, that's just an extra. You know, the coconut water doesn't need any extra enhancement or complements or anything. It's whole. Mm-hmm. It's a whole food and a water. And another thing that I also find, if you're familiar with the term, I believe it's called endosperm. And when we look at the endosperm of a plant, it's usually the seed of that plant. So it's usually, you know, obviously very dense in substance and minerals. Like if you take the seed, a watermelon seed or a pumpkin seed, any kind of seed, and that's the endosperm of that plant. And obviously it's loaded with nutrition, it's loaded with proteins and good stuff.
Right.
Well, the endosperm of the coconut plant is the coconut water.
Interesting.
Yes. So
like
again, you're drinking seed water. You're drinking, right? You're drinking, again, think about the efficiency of that.
Yeah.
You know, because seeds are like any protein dominant food. It can be tough to digest, or at least the body is going to have to do some work to process it. Where with the water, again, this is water. It's divine. Yeah. And so that's why I say it's really the king and queen of all foods. It is really a gift from God. The coconut plant. You know, and everything about the coconut, from the water to like from mature coconuts, you got the meat, or you have the soft jelly. Mm-hmm. It is all divine. It is all love. It is all good. I can't say enough about the coconut. Definitely at the top of my list as far as foods that if it was one last food that I have to live on, it's definitely the coconut. I'm gonna get everything I need from the coconut.
Gotcha. Yeah, dude, you definitely put a nice cap on that, because oh my God, the whole food water liquid, that's crazy, but you're absolutely right. I love it. And see, I'm huge on hydration and water, and just, you know, I think we both understand water, and that right there it blew my mind. So I'm definitely gonna be doing, because me and my brother are actually we're developing a program, and I like to incorporate fasting when I'm looking to create new programs and things of that nature, for the mental clarity, but also just to bring to the forefront of my mind what it is that I'm looking to share with others. And I think we're going to include that in our research for this program. So I appreciate that. Now, before we kind of wrap things up, with the importance of the coconut water and everything we've talked about, I want to make sure we're all on the same page about where you get your coconut water from, because I feel like that certainly plays a role. So how should we be getting our coconut water?
Wow. Now I mean, you're right. I mean, especially after everything I said, and it's like, how do you get healthy coconut water? Because there are some unhealthy choices. Definitely, a no-go is anything in a can. You don't want to do. You want to stay clear away from anything that may, that say coconut water and it's in a can. Okay. Other than that, now there's going to be some pros and cons with every other choice, but mostly pro, because most of the other choices, again, we have to do the best we can. Right. I say that with anything. Right. Even with any kind of water, it's like, look, if tap water is your only choice, look, then you make the best of it. Right. So with coconut water, now I'm blessed again to be in. Now I mean, because one thing my teacher always say, one thing he says is like, I'm gonna live where coconuts grow. So obviously, if you live where coconuts grow, you're good. Then you better than most of us, and you're already in an environment that is ideal for human beings. But for those of us like myself who don't live where coconuts grow, fortunately, I'm able to pretty much get coconuts year round. The ones that I get are from Florida. They are typically tend to be green, even though coconuts can be orange. They can be yellow. I've seen them even brown, but not the brown with the husk, because that's a mature coconut. But just like a light shade of brown. So that doesn't really mean anything in terms of the actual coconut. Again, they just be various hues. So I'm able to get the coconut, and then obviously, there's some skill in terms of opening, accessing the water, whether you use like a tool, you could use a drill, a screwdriver, a knife. I actually have a video showing how I got into a coconut using a butter knife. Okay. So, I'm able to get coconuts pretty much year round. They grow in Florida, South Florida. But let's say you can't get that for whatever reason. The next best thing would be, I would say, because like even with the when the pandemic first hit, I wasn't able to get coconuts. And I had to revert to, I think for a few weeks, I was drinking the Harmless Harvest brand. Okay. Now, the Harmless Harvest brand is a unpasteurized, I believe they use pressure pasteurization, which is not a heat pasteurization, but a pressure. Okay. So it is probably the best commercial option, even though I don't enjoy how it tastes. It's a little oversweet to me, and it just doesn't taste as fresh as the real thing, obviously. But it is the best of the other in terms of the commercial. And then, of course, last but not least, you have the brands like Vita Coco. There's a handful of brands, and they have what they call the tetrahedral, the little box. These things are not ideal, but they're okay. Right. They're better than tap water. Right. Better than bottled water. They're definitely better than bottled water. Yeah. Now, if I'm going to drink it, one thing I suggest doing is squeezing some fresh lime. Okay. And I suggest doing that with really any water, especially commercial water, or like a distilled water. Mm-hmm. Just I'd squeeze some fresh lime just to give it some energy, just to give it something. Because again, a lot of these waters, especially, I'm speaking on the coconut water, they tend to taste, again, unnaturally sweet. Now, I know that they're not adding any additional sugar, but I just think that a lot of these coconuts it's either the process or they're either breeding. I know in Thailand or in a lot of the tropical Asian countries, the coconuts are being bred,
Right.
meaning that they're being hybridized so that the water tastes sweeter,
Right.
which is ridiculous. Like the water just doesn't taste right. It tastes like it, again, is missing some mineral salts, which again, I failed to mention, coconut water has sodium, has some natural salt, and the best tasting coconuts are one that grows near the salt water, because they're taking that salt water and they're filtering it and making it assimilable for the human body. So you can taste the salt and it tastes perfect.
Gotcha.
Those are the best tasting salt. But usually those oversweet coconuts, I can't taste any of that. Like it's but so what I do is, again, get the lime and add some lime to it, and it cuts that sweetness and gives it like a more completeness, I guess, if you will.
Okay.
So that's my suggestions as far as coconut water.
Okay. All right. Well, before we go, I definitely want to get your information. We want to know the name of the book, where we can find it, your website, and then I guess if you've got a YouTube or whatever else you want to share with us.
Yes. So my book is, I have a copy here, Paradise Health.
Okay.
As you see, these are coconuts. I was so inspired.
Yeah.
Because, and the inspiration really behind the book, I mean, there's a couple inspirations behind this book, but probably the main one, at least in reference to this conversation, was one that, because of my experience with coconut water fasting, there was nothing in the literature that spoke about this, that talked about this. So I really tried to address that in this book by writing about my experience that is obviously continuing to evolve. So yeah, this is my book. You can find it on my website, Kepra's rawfoodjuicebar.com. If you want like a Kindle format, you can go on Amazon. It is available for those of you who don't want the physical copy. But if you do order my copy from my website, I will personally autograph it, because I do fulfill those orders personally. I am on YouTube. You just, my first name, Khepra, just Google that. But the actual URL is youtube.com/Khepra, Khepra is a spelling.
Okay.
And, I mentioned my website. I'm on Instagram, Chef Khepra, or the business is Kepra's Raw Food Juice Bar, at Kepra's Raw Food Juice Bar. So, and then I'm also on Facebook. So by the same name, Khepra New or Kepra's Raw Food Juice Bar. So that's all. I believe that's all my social media. Join my newsletter. That's where you can find out like just all my happenings with me as far as the business. And then also on my YouTube channel, subscribe and, hit the notification and all that. So,
okay.
But yeah, that's how you can find me.
Excellent. Yeah. So you have a juice bar, a physical location?
Oh yeah. I've been serving the DC. I'm in Washington DC.
Okay.
I've been serving the DC community for more than 15 years. And I actually do have a location. You can find that on my website. We're open every day. One of the big things is our juice cleanse. I probably served at least over 20,000 customers.
Wow.
In the last 10 years. So it's been a real reward. I've never asked for a waiver or, obviously, some people may have experiences with it, which they think are negative.
Right.
But I say, look, this is the body choosing to do what it wants to do when you choose not to eat or give it some different nutrition, in a way of detox and correcting itself. So, so yeah, so I, I feel a responsibility, given that I have, it's always been my drive and my mission to achieve the best health. So, you know, being in the position I'm in, it just feels definitely like a personal responsibility to inspire, to serve, to educate, and you know, just to continue to, you know, improve on not just my customers, but just the world, and whoever wants to learn and improve their way of life.
Well, I'm going to, when I'm in the area, I'm gonna be dropping in. I love to support, but also to see what you have going on. And I think that one of my goals is definitely transitioning to raw. I'm not ready to do it right now, but it's certainly one of my goals. So having some inspiration for, you know, how to actually prepare food. And I've had some good raw dishes, so it's not that I'm uninterested. I think the food is amazing. Mm-hmm. Obviously there's that transitional phase, but
yeah, you got to be able to make a good salad, like like that's at the very minimum.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's been amazing speaking to you. I'm extremely glad that we did this. And I think this is going to help my audience quite a bit. And I'm sure they're going to be, you know, coming and checking you out, because we do have a community that's committed to our health. So with everything that you said, as much as it resonated with me, I know it'll resonate with them. You said a lot of stuff that I say, so I'm looking forward to releasing this and having everybody watch and comment.
Yes, I'm really looking forward to the feedback. I feel like this is really a soulful way and a fun way, a fun and soulful way to not just be healthy, but especially when we look at fasting. You know, nothing against, you know, using water or any type of water
Mm-hmm.
as terms of fasting. But when we get into the coconut water, it is like something, again, given to us by God, given us all of, you know, whether we look at the nutritional benefits, whether we look at it like, you know, the coconut, I mean, we can analyze the coconut plant, the coconut actually being a symbolic of a breast, and you know, and we know that the breast is where we get our first, at least, nourishment outside
Mm-hmm.
of air.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it just goes deep and deep, and once you get into it, there's no turning back. Trust me, no turning back.
All right. Well, I'll probably be picking up your book then. I want to get some of this knowledge and incorporate it in my teaching and everything. So I look forward to checking that out. If you guys like this video, you already know what to do. Hit the like button. If you want to see more videos like this, don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell. I release videos every Sunday, 10:30 a.m. Central Time. And as always, the application of knowledge is power. And I will see you all next time.